Now, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa is making the closing address at the NEC. Let's take you live there now.
Metro mayors and all other officials, deployed comrades, we've come to the end of the first NEC Lekgotla of 2022, which in many ways will inform the programs of action for both the movement and our government this year. These Lekgotlas that we hold provide the opportunity for the leadership of the movement and government to assess the extent to which we have succeeded in implementing our electoral mandate, as well as building a national democratic society. This Lekgotla is being held at a time when our country and the world face a number of huge challenges. It is at such a time and moment that we need to remind ourselves of our historic mission as the African National Congress, which is to unite all the people of South Africa for the complete liberation of the country from all forms of discrimination and national oppression. We exist as a movement to fight for social justice and to eliminate the vast inequalities created by apartheid and to promote economic development for the benefit of all our people. It's with these objectives in mind that we must confront the challenges facing our country and undertake a far-reaching and fundamental renewal of our movement. The meeting of the Lekgotla recognized the extent to which COVID-19 has exacerbated fault lines of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. The pandemic exacerbated an already precarious economic situation with a significant decline in our GDP and job losses. This has led to a number of challenges and vulnerabilities, including extreme poverty and hunger, with the poorest bearing the largest impact. Unemployment is at its highest ever levels, with the latest quarterly labor force survey putting the unemployment rate at nearly 35%. Youth unemployment is particularly concerning at 50% for young people between 18 years and 34. The Lekgotla also spent some time focusing on the building of a social compact to decisively address unemployment and poverty as being an absolutely necessary task. The meeting noted that the world is undergoing a serious economic and social crisis with unemployment rising, widening inequality and deepening poverty. This has impacted South Africa also in a profound and deep manner, especially amongst the vulnerable part of our society, the working class and young people. Critically, the Lekgotla called for a decisive response to these challenges. The challenge is to lead all sectors of South Africa towards a new and resilient social compact to build an inclusive society, but to build also an inclusive economy that brings a change in the quality of life for all South Africans. An effective social compact will require give and take by all parties, social partners, as all parties need to contribute in the cause of national development. In addition to this, it will be necessary to identify trade-offs social partners will need to act on. The NEC, in its January 8th statement, urged the government to lead in concluding a social compact with all social partners. The compact will need to set out a collective commitment to implement measures and targets to place our nation on a higher growth path aimed at addressing our common national challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. In this type of compact, obligations and commitments will need to be set out. Commitments and obligations that government will need to act on, business will need to commit itself to, labor will also need to be part thereof, and communities as well. And this will help us to decisively address our nation's lasting challenges. The Lekgotla felt that social compacting that we're talking about should not be limited to large formal sector entities and be limited just to big government and big entities at the national level, but should also include the participation of our communities at local level, small businesses, township businesses, and cooperatives. We have found that many of these locally based formations are very keen to be part of a social compact, which can be most effective in dealing with problems and challenges at that local level rather. The terms and trade-offs of a social compact will require that all parties should commit themselves seriously to arriving at agreements that are durable, that are crafted in a way to address the challenges. The government will be called upon to take steps to be more effective in guiding the process and implementing the reforms that government should lead in. It will also be called upon to guide the restructuring of network industries, as well as improving law and order and security for communities and economic infrastructure. Business will need to make real, verifiable commitments to expand investment and support localization, as well as to support black economic empowerment. Labor and communities will need to commit to improving levels of productivity, skills, as well as entrepreneurship. The Lekgotla agreed that an alliance committee be established to fine-tune our approach to social compacting. The aim should be to forge greater consensus amongst alliance partners, which can serve as a building block for broader social consensus on a social compact for accelerated growth and job creation. The Lekgotla reaffirmed that economic recovery efforts to stimulate growth, investment, and employment must also be accelerated. Fundamental to this must be increased funding for urgent programs to improve the basic services our people live, such as access to water, electricity, roads, and bridges for communities both in urban and rural communities or areas. Federal service delivery cluster, appropriate institutional arrangement should be put in place to improve service delivery in areas such as water and sanitation and other basic services. This is in direct response to community concerns about the poor state of this critical infrastructure across a number of municipalities. The Lekgotla also took time to discuss an intervention that was embarked upon by government to ensure that our people are able to deal with the devastating impact of COVID-19 through the 350 COVID SRD grant which was instituted. The Lekgotla noted that this grant has had a significant positive impact on the lives of the poor, but more particularly the unemployed. The government must examine the feasibility, the Lekgotla said, and affordability of providing some form of income support for the poor and unemployed going forward. Community service programs and community gardens should be encouraged through existing institutions, including ward committees, civics, youth, women's groups, as well as churches. With regards to the township economy and community project, there is a need to promote economic activity through the provision of sites, through the providing access to markets, improved regulation and infrastructure, to give people information on opportunities, financing and incentives for local procurement. The issue of regulations that constitute red tape and make it difficult for small and medium enterprises, and including business people who operate in the informal sector, came up for serious discussion. And the view was strong that the red tape that impedes the participation of our people, of entrepreneurs in the small and medium enterprise level and informal sector should be removed, and we should rather roll out the red carpet so that our people can trade, can make things, and be able to earn an income and make profits to support their families, so that we are also able to increase participation in the informal sector. Our informal sector participation is much lower than in many other countries. And we therefore need to reduce the unnecessary regulatory strictures and red tape to enable our people to trade, to make things, so that the economy can grow continuously at that level. Labor-intensive interventions should be embarked upon to build and maintain community infrastructure, and mass employment opportunities should be created particularly for young people. In order to overcome the crippling impact of South Africa's electricity shortage and load shedding, the country must embark decisively on a just energy transition to restore energy security and to stimulate great investment and employment in the energy sector. Through instruments such as the Integrated Resource Plan, investment should be mobilized as rapidly as possible and at lowest possible cost in order to restore energy security and promote job creation as well as job retention. We will continue, the Lekgotla observed, to pursue an energy mix which includes renewables, battery and pump storage, gas as a transition enabler, nuclear at a pace our country can afford, as well as explore carbon capture and use other technologies. Ongoing plans to restructure Eskom and resolve the entity's unsustainable debt must be implemented on schedule so as to assist in strengthening public management of the national electricity grid, as well as to unlock much needed public and private investment in electricity generation capacity. The ANC and alliance partners should provide leadership in the country's transition to low carbon economy and climate resilient future. In particular, we will ensure that workers and communities in coal-producing areas participate in the development of well-researched and credible transition pathways, which ensure the development of new economic opportunities, community development, and above all, new jobs that will come through as these new sectors of the economy related to energy come to the fore. There needs to be urgent resolution of the ongoing disputes and conflicts delaying the release of the spectrum. The design of the spectrum release process must seek to advance the needs of customers, or consumers rather, and public entities for access to affordable, high-speed bandwidth. The process must promote increased competition among businesses operating in the sector. The process must also include explicit strategies to advance public policy objectives, such as the rollout of high-speed broadband access to poor and working-class communities. The NEC Lekgotla urges government to expedite the promulgation of the Public Procurement Bill to allow for a set asides for our SMEs and cooperatives in the procurement process. We must ensure budget cuts and focus on public-private partnerships do not lead to a slowdown in infrastructure and service provision in poor and working-class communities. At a local government level, the governance and coordination framework afforded by the district development model should be actively implemented, and local government structures should be sufficiently resourced to take this process forward. Through the DDM, as we call it, all three spheres of government are empowered to work together on a common vision so as to expedite service delivery, local procurement, and job creation. Skill development should be better aligned with economic planning so that the relevant skills are produced which are most needed for localization and economic development. The 2030 policy position on post-school education and the development of streams in the basic education curriculum must be closely aligned to the skills needs of the economy. There is a need for better resourcing that focus on specific sector needs, particularly in the areas of agriculture, mining, and information technology. Skills development and innovation must be part of our central pillars of employment creation as well as industrialization. Skills development should respond to vacancies in the economy at the time when we have seen massive job losses. We also need to guide skills development to support our national turnaround imperative based on the key pillars of our approach, such as infrastructure development, industrialization, the green transition we've been talking about, and the digital economy. We must continue to encourage increased minerals and gas exploration for the current and future growth of our economy and job creation, just as many other countries are doing. In doing this, we must ensure that current legal and consultation procedures should be followed in permitting minerals and gas exploration activities to ensue. South Africa has an opportunity to deepen our industrialization using local raw materials as inputs to local manufacturing industries. The policy should be reviewed to identify strategic minerals where export taxes may be appropriate, and energy pricing policies should support such efforts. The process of equitable land redistribution should be accelerated, together with supportive measures to assist in the success of black landowners who are involved in large-scale and small-scale farming activities. A balanced and effective land transformation process should be pursued without compromising our food security. Land reform instruments should include measures such as tax on unutilized land or underutilized land, densification strategies, the setting up of production and retail sites in informal and formal settlements. The Lekgotla urges Parliament to finalize the processing of the expropriation bill to allow more just and equitable access to land. The Lekgotla also took time to discuss the issue of defending the gains of our democracy. It recognized our movement is going through a period of decay and degeneration. The ANC has been able to extricate itself from similar situations in the past. It is important not to lower our guard against counter-revolution. The threat to our democratic gains is also a result of an era of loss of moral and ethical principles within the Congress movement. We need to show determination in addressing the toxic legacy of state capture that resulted in security institutions being weakened, misdirected, and hollowed out. Divisions and factions in the ANC are themselves becoming a threat to our democracy. Economic challenges of income and wealth inequality and the triple challenges threaten state security, and these require urgent interventions from all of us as social partners. Regression of ethical and moral leadership has resulted in what I would call an existential crisis. Our credibility and legitimacy are being undermined, yes, by our inability to act. As the ANC, we should analyze and assess threats caused by others and threats caused by our own acts of omission and commission. This requires a multifaceted and coordinated approach by the cluster and the government institutions where self-reflection is practiced. The ANC needs to commit towards deepening and defending the national democratic revolution. Counter-revolution is wearing a different face in our country. There are expressions of democracy under threat which are a result of loss of ethical compass and moral direction. The ANC and the Alliance reaffirm our support for the Constitution. We must state it clear that we reaffirm our support for the sacred document that enshrines the Bill of Rights, and we reaffirm our support for the judiciary and distance ourselves from narratives that seek to negate this. The ANC and government have demonstrated our principled support for the objectives and work of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry since its inception. The National Executive Committee has agreed to establish an NEC task team to guide the ANC's response to the Zondo Commission report. This would lead to a development of a discussion paper for the ANC structures on corruption and state capture and processing of recommendations relating to ANC and its deployees. Whilst government will only pronounce fully on receipt of the complete report, the ANC urges government to fully address behavior and causes that allowed state capture to occur. The ANC will need to lead the debate on immigration in order to ensure that it remains infused with principles of Pan-Africanism and is not overtaken by right-wing sentiments. Promoting legal migration is a central aspect of securing the peace and security of South Africa and the sub-region, and the ANC must act against the stoking of anti-African sentiment. Also took time as the Lekgotla to discuss the building of a capable and ethical developmental state. We seek to build a capable and ethical developmental state. This is fundamental to our drive for the reconstruction, the growth, and the transformation of our society and economy. The Lekgotla highlighted that there must be increased scrutiny of the performance of ANC public representatives and government, and agreed that the movement will increase its monitoring and evaluation capacity. In recognition of the ongoing drive to professionalize the public service, the Lekgotla recommended the urgent finalization of the professionalization framework with an emphasis on pre-entry, recruitment, selection, induction, continuous learning and career progression of public servants. The Lekgotla also recommended the further strengthening of the National School of Government. Our meeting also recognized and recommended conducting government and society-wide research and discussions on the future of work to take into account the changing attitudes, the changing processes and modalities of work that are influenced by technology, by the digital era, and all that. Government is urged to finalize the legislative amendment aimed at the realization of the single public service to ensure equitable and relevant spread of skills throughout the public service. Also took time to discuss a better Africa and a better world. Our commitment to a better Africa and a better world remains unwavering as we participate in the resolution of issues affecting global humanity, including the urgent challenges of climate change, global peace, security and development, as well as the reform of multilateral institutions, and as we continue to pledge solidarity with oppressed peoples elsewhere in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact internationally, which continues to weaken the global economy, giving rise to increased unemployment rates, poverty and inequality at national, regional, and global levels. However, while developing countries have been worst affected by this pandemic, the Commission notes, the Lekgotla notes the positive and gradual recovery among some countries in the South. The Lekgotla noted with concern the growth of right-wing ideology and its adverse impact in international politics, and in particular on our beloved African continent. This poses a serious risk to the global South. It undermines global solidarity and gives rise to imposition of unilateralism in the international system. These right-wing tendencies weaken the principle and practice of sovereign equality of states. The ANC government is urged to continue with mobilizing progressive forces on the continent and globally to advance a progressive international agenda to counter the very strong hegemonic unilateral agendas that are being imposed in a number of areas or parts of the world. Africa has significant advantages like abundant natural resources, lots of arable land for food production, abundant water supplies, and most of all, a young population. A rising and increasingly prosperous Africa will impact positively on South Africa's prospects as well. The SADC Free Trade Agreement and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area are crucial milestones on the path to integrate trade and investment in our region and across the continent. There are still too many impediments to the free flow of goods and services between African countries. An acceleration of manufacturing, increased foreign direct investment, and rapid adoption of technology is crucial for the creation of jobs and improving the economic prospects of the continent. A continent-wide infrastructure rollout to enable economic development is crucial for our advancement as a continent. The building of roads, expansion of rail and ports, and the electrification processes are necessary to ensure that products that are manufactured on our continent reach local as well as international markets. There is a need for continuous support and monitoring of intervention measures that have been agreed to by SADC to ensure peace and stability in Lesotho, in Eswatini, and in Mozambique. The ANC should continue to object to the unilateral admission of Israel as an observer to the African Union and work with other progressive forces for its removal from the body. This will give greater impetus to the action of government to officially challenge the observer status at the forthcoming African Union Summit. Members of Parliament need to strengthen their relations with progressive parliamentarians in other countries to lobby for our relevant cross-cutting international policy stances. The ANC should strengthen party-to-party relations and overall solidarity work and advance our progressive internationalism. The party should also be able to strengthen its own international work. So should COSATU with other workers' federations on our continent, so that a progressive international agenda should be advanced. Similarly, our students through SASCO should do exactly the same and advance all these progressive policies in forums where they participate. The Lekgotla took time as well to discuss how we accelerate the fundamental renewal and rebuilding of the ANC. There is widespread acceptance that the ANC as an organization is beset by severe challenges such as weak structures, internal conflicts, factionalism, and members and leaders acting in their own self-interest rather than in the furtherance of the cause of our people. This has damaged the ANC standing as servant of the people and a leader of society. If we do not make a decisive break with the practices that have caused this decline in our standing, we will cease to be a trusted and effective agent of change. The ANC will therefore intensify the fundamental renewal of our movement as mandated by the 54th National Conference and reaffirmed by the January 8th statement. We will be principled and decisive in ridding our movement from practices that prevent us from serving the people of our country with distinction and honesty. Renewal is a process, and we will experience successes as well as setbacks. This we accept. However, we will not deviate from the mission to restore and rebuild our movement, to become more effective, to become a movement where discipline becomes the order of the day. And we will not deviate from our dedication as a movement, as leaders, and as members to strive at all times to be the servants of the people of South Africa. This is a legacy that was bequeathed to us over generations, counting 110 years. Those who have come before us have been steadfast in serving the people of South Africa. We who are the inheritors of this movement must follow in their footsteps, and we must do as they did to serve the interests the people and not to serve our own interests, particularly ourselves as leaders of the African National Congress and the broader Congress movement. Comrade National Chairperson Gwede Batashi, I thank you. I apologize for the faltering of my voice. I guess I've not been drinking enough water, which I shall henceforth be doing in gallons and gallons. Thank you very much.